Hello everyone, and welcome to my all-new cooking extravaganza. And for my very first recipe, I decided to pick something that's really easy to do. So I'm going to start out with something simple, and I really hope to maybe teach you something new if you've never actually baked anything before. Baking really isn't as intimidating as it seems. I mean, I will tell you that it does take practice, and you can sometimes make mistakes, but you can learn from them and get better. So I'm going to help you as far as navigating you through the process to hopefully avoid any unexpected disasters in the kitchen. So I really wanted to start out, like I said, with something that is not too complicated and relatively, I would say, in terms of like the level of cooking, it would probably be considered beginners. If I had to categorize it, I'd say, this is really for more the beginning level of cooking. I am by no means a master chef, like one of these queens that they whip out these dishes and it's like, hello. No, that's not me, but I will tell you that most of what I will be doing for this new cooking how-to is really not that complex, where you're just going to be like, oh my god, this is way too complicated. So what I'm going to be doing for the first dish is basically a recipe for cherry squares, and it is a dessert. It's very good, and it takes about 90 minutes approximately. And I'm going to say approximately because it may take you longer, especially if you've never really baked anything before and you've never done these. I will take you through it step by step, but you do want to, first of all, you're going to need 1 cup of butter. So I'm just going through everything that you'll need first. So you will need butter, of course, and you're going to need a cup of butter at room temperature. So you're going to need that, and you're also going to need sugar. So that's an obvious ingredient when you're making a dessert. So, and let's see what else. Oh, you will also need vanilla flavoring. And you're going to need 1 teaspoon of that. You're going to need 1 cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, and 2 cups of flour. And also 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and can't forget, of course, eggs. You need 2 eggs, and of course the cherries. And I can't emphasize this enough, but obviously these are cherry squares. That's the whole purpose, is to have really good cherries. And so you don't really want to be stingy and get really cheap cherries. And I'm not really going to be promoting brands on this. I think it's tacky, and I really want to avoid doing that kind of stuff. But I will just say that definitely don't choose something just because it's really cheap and not very good as far as the quality of the cherries, because that's really important. And actually what you want is cherry filling, which is also of course used to make cherry pies. And so once you have all the ingredients, then we can get started. And I'm going to really just go through the way that I make them step by step. So this is really how to, according to the way I do them, but certainly you can add your own style to how you want to bake these. And you will need I would say 9 by 13 baking dish. This is a cake pan. So you want something along these lines. And so I think we can get started. Okay, so here we go. You want to take the 2 cups of flour and put that aside. And what I like to do is, once I put it in a separate bowl, I just like to whisk it and, you know, just to get it nice and fluffy. So you want to do that for a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just put this aside for now. I will tell you that I tend to be very discombobulated sometimes when I put things in, just kind of arrange everything. I like to just do it my own way. And everyone has, like I said, a different way of doing things. And mine might seem a little disorganized, but really I know exactly what I'm doing, trust me. So don't worry, I have it under control. But if you want to do it differently, I mean, there's all different ways to bake cherry squares. So I'm just giving you my recipe and the way that I do it. So I'm going to put this aside, and so now we have to add in another bowl 1 cup of sugar. So we're going to put that in the bowl. Okay, so we have that. And then we're going to add the butter. Now, of course, you want to have it at room temperature. And so again, this is going to be 1 cup, which is 2 sticks of butter. Like, I like to use unsalted butter, but I mean, you could certainly use salted. It's up to you. I'm really more of an unsalted kind of guy. So we're going to do this first. And also, I mean, again, I really want to avoid, you know, telling people what brand of butter to use or what brand of cherry filling. Because again, we're using cherry filling, which you can use to make, of course, cherry pies as well. Maybe we'll make that another day. But really, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can use different brands. But really, you just want a quality product. I mean, you certainly want a quality butter. You don't want something that is, well, I don't know how to say this in a polite way, but you don't want crap. What can I say? You don't want a crap butter, crappy cherries, and then that defeats the whole reason of baking a really good dessert. And that's what this is hopefully going to be, right? As long as you're following my directions, I'm sure it will be, but not that I'm bragging or anything. But this, like I said, is fairly straightforward, and you can do it in a reasonable amount of time, and it doesn't have to be a really complicated, long, drawn-out endeavor. So, and I do really want to emphasize also that you can certainly adjust the size of the recipe if you want to make, you know, more than what I'm going to be making. But for now, I'm just making one batch of these. So, but I mean, it's like you were having a big party, let's say, and you wanted to have a lot more than that. You certainly could adjust it accordingly to what you need. Okay, so I think we are ready to now beat the sugar. We're gonna beat it and beat the butter and sugar, I meant to say. Everything is in the bowl and it's ready to be beaten. So we're going to now beat the butter and sugar just for a couple minutes, just to get it nice and blended, fluffy, nice and smooth and creamy and all that. So I'm going to use my electric mixer and we're going to try to do this without making too much of a mess, hopefully. And here we go. So like I said, hopefully it won't be too disastrous and all over the place. So, and I'm just going to put this actually on medium speed. It's kind of like vibrators, they have different speeds, so you can use certainly, not that I would know, but about the speeds of a vibrator, but you can use up to, well, mine there's like 5 different speeds, so I'm going to put it on the second actually, just to get started. Okay, I think I've done that enough. So as you can see, it's nice and blended in there, and I think it's good enough for now. And so I think we're ready to move on. And so now we're going to add the eggs. So go ahead and do that. Wow. Okay. One. I didn't do that very good. Okay. One. Ooh. I'm not very good at cracking eggs sometimes. Okay. Oh dear. It's so yucky, eggs sometimes. Alright, number 2. Oh, that was even worse. Okay, number 2. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is just I'm going to mix the eggs in with the butter before we add in the flour. And blend it, as I said, smoothly before we start adding in the last of the ingredients. So at this point what I do is, so I just do that a little bit more as far as mixing the eggs in with the butter and the sugar, and then what I'm going to do now is add in the teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so here's the teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, and now about the baking powder, because I want to tell you something. Some people don't like to use baking powder in this, and some do. I just personally really don't care either way. I mean, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference as far as like making it fluffier or rise up more, but I do add in, as it states in the recipe that I use, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So I do add that. But I add that in, of course, with the flour. So just add that in. Of course, I could have done that earlier. Like I said, it's, everybody likes to do things differently, and so it's up to you how you want to do it. So I'm just gonna mix in that baking powder with the flour. And so I think we're really, at this point, ready to mix everything together. So, like I said, I like to whisk the flour, and now that it has the baking powder, I'm making sure that it's nice and fluffy and mixed in real well. And then we will add it to the rest of the ingredients, the butter, the sugar, and the teaspoon of vanilla and the eggs. So let's do it. Put this in and mix it all together. Ew. It looks really gross right now, but it's all going to work out. And why? Because I have utter faith in you that you're going to make really good cherry squares, and you have me to help you. So you're going to learn that it really is not as hard as it seems at first, and with practice you'll get better. And you may have some kitchen disasters. We all have them. They do happen. Hopefully I can help you avoid that as much as I can, of course. But every situation is not the same, and not every kitchen is the same. So now that I added in the rest of the ingredients, I think we're ready to mix it all together. And here we go. Okay, so I think I've mixed this really well. And so I think now we're ready to actually spread it onto the cake pan. So here you have it. That's what it looks like right now. I know it looks real gooey and all that. So, and also I just want to say, please do not want to be one of those people that's really gross and, licks off of this and then puts it back in. Not a good idea. So you really want to kind of have like consideration for those who are going to be eating your cherry squares. So just be considerate. Okay, so I'm gonna get the cake pan and we're gonna spread this, and we should be almost ready to put it in the oven and get these ready to be baked. Okay, so now comes what can be the hard part, and that is getting this spread onto the cake pan. And really, I mean, the objective here is to get this evenly spread, because you're actually going to be making these into the squares even before you put them in the oven. So you're going to be dividing them into the squares, which I'm going to be showing you momentarily how to do. And then, of course, the final step is putting the cherries on the squares before you put them in. But this part is my least favorite part of making these, because you do have to get this spread out properly onto this cake pan. Because if not, then this will not turn out well. And you definitely want to get all of it, because that also can be a problem if you don't have enough of the batter spread onto the pan correctly. But I think everything looks well. Like, everything looks good so far. So I think these will turn out very well. But as I'm doing this, I just really want to also talk about baking these and making sure that they bake at the proper temperature. Now my recipe says to cook at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. But my oven is a very powerful oven, and 45 minutes is not right. From my oven, I have to take them out well before that, actually about after 20 minutes approximately, because it cooks that quickly. But everyone may have different ovens, and so really it's a really, I have to say that's a really difficult decision about how long to leave them in. So especially if you're not sure about how your oven is going to bake these. So, but after you preheat the oven, you put it in for I would say at least, really should be in for at least about approximately 20 minutes. But 45 minutes I think is too much, and they will burn. Believe me, you do not want these to be like brown. You actually want to take them out and test them before they start to get brown around the edges. So, see, as I'm spreading this out, that's what you want to be doing. Okay, so I wanted to give you a close-up so you can see that I have spread the batter across the pan, and now we are ready to cut the cherry squares, and we're going to put the cherries on. Okay, so now we are getting near the final step, and that is before we put it in the oven, we of course want to put on the cherries. So you have it cut into the squares, and you're ready to put the cherries on the squares. So here we go. I usually use about 3 at a time. And that's usually enough, because what's going to happen is when these heat, it's going to rise and it's actually going to go around the cherries. And it's really interesting the way that this cooks in the oven, which you will see when you actually do put it in. But as I was saying earlier, you really do want to use like good cherries for this. You don't want to skimp on those and use something cheap. No brand names mentioned, but and so I'm just putting just like 3 at a time on there, and you, as you can see, that's how I'm doing it. I don't want to lift this too much. Okay. And so you want to continue to do that around each cherry. I mean each square. Let's put about 3 on there. And that's usually how much I put on. And there you have it. So these are ready to be put in the oven, and as I stated, it has been preheated and we're ready to put them in. Okay, and I just want to reiterate what I mentioned earlier, which is make sure to watch these after you put them in the oven every few minutes. Just check on them, because my recipe says to put them in for 45 minutes, but believe me, I think that's too much. At least for my oven, it's definitely going to bake these sooner than 45 minutes. And when you see it starting to get golden brown around the edges, for example, you want to take them out and then use a toothpick and just put it in the middle of the square. I mean, not where the cherries are, but just around towards the middle, and just see if it's still doughy or not. So, but as I stated, when you see it starting to get brown around the outsides, that's usually when you want to take it out and check it. So we're going to put them in for approximately, at least with my oven, it's going to be approximately 20 minutes at 350 degrees. And there you have it. These look like they're done. As I stated, they're golden brown, just around the edges. It's usually when I know that they're about done. And they look cooked to me, but what we're gonna do is, like I talked about earlier, we're gonna take this toothpick and we're just going to put it in towards the center. And when you take the toothpick out, you shouldn't have any doughiness. Shouldn't have any dough stuck to the toothpick, and that's how you know that it's definitely cooked thoroughly enough. Some people like to cook them even a little bit longer until they're a lighter golden color than this, but this is how I like them, and so there you go. There you have it. That's how you make cherry squares. So thank you very much for joining me for my very first Cooking in the Kitchen with Brian T. And thank you.